Hey everyone, I'm Raygar Khailany with PlanScout, and here's Jon-Michael Lust joining me today. We're going to model some of these tax planning strategies that we learned about from the webinar with Brady Mullen. And what you'll be able to see is the power of using reverse mortgages in a tax planning sense. So we'll take a look at a PlanScout presentation that goes over the plan. And then Jon-Michael is going to give us an overview of how it's modeled in the planning software in SIPS. As a reminder, you can get any of these resources on our website at help.sipsplanning.com, or just engage with our team if we're constructing any of these plans for you. So let's take a look at a presentation that highlights some of the value that can be delivered with tax planning. So we like to start with our PlanScout plans, just restating the information that we use to create the plan. As I always share, it's really helpful in case there's something that was missed or lost in translation, so you can set those expectations properly with your clients, but also just to restate for them what you're going to share and walk them through. Kind of restate, these are all their numbers and all the specific. Just looking at our sample client, Jane Doe here, she's 62 years old. She is still working for a few more years, earning about $150,000 a year pre-tax. She's planning on taking Social Security. She's going to take it at age 70. You can see she's going to receive about $66,000 in Social Security income each year. And then she is also planning to age in place. So she is going to do some home remodeling so that her home is more friendly for her as she lives out her golden retirement years. And so you could see she's got a pretty modest spending goal, considering what she's earning today of $125,000 of that after-tax spending goal. But if you look at her assets on the right, you'll see that she's got about $2 million in total assets, and split 50-50 between taxable savings and tax-deferred savings. She also has a decent size home equity of about $1.2 million that she's going to hopefully leverage here in an efficient way during her retirement plan. So let's take a look. What we do with our PlanScout plans is we'll always have kind of this similar approach where you've got a graph here in the upper right that is a visual representation of her plan. So you can see for Jane, the bars represent cash flow in any specific year. And so you can see a big golden bar there for $300,000 in the second year, which is for a home remodel. You can also see that the shaded area, the gray shaded area, is sloping upwards to the right, and her plan's in pretty good shape. So she's going to not only be able to afford her lifestyle, but she's also going to be able to afford remodeling her home out of pocket. And so while this, you could say, hey, this is a successful plan because it's got the RMDs incorporated, it's got all the right taxes and cash flow, we think there's a lot more value that we could add for Jane. What we looked at in this plan is, because she has a decent amount of taxable and tax-deferred assets, she's actually a good candidate for a Roth conversion. You can see in the plan summary in the upper left that now we have a reference to where we started for the total after-tax income that this plan creates of 6.4 million, and then also the 3.928 million of savings left at the end of the plan for a total lifetime estate value up here of 10.3 million. You can see we've modeled some Roth conversions really in those years in between her retiring and starting her Social Security. So on the graph, the lines represent the effective tax rate after the Roth conversion, which is the solid black line. And then the dotted red line is the effective tax rate before the Roth conversion. Looking down at the box at the bottom, you can see that we've modeled converting $375,000 to Roth over 3 years. And you can see it on the graph by looking at this shaded area, the blue shaded area where the black line is higher than the red line. This is Jane paying more taxes to do a Roth conversion. And then for later years, you can see the black line is below the dotted red line, and we've shaded that as green. That's a savings that she's going to realize from the Roth conversion. We modeled the cumulative taxes paid as the shaded areas. So you can see the payback is about 20 years into the future, which is not uncommon for clients that are doing Roth conversions to see paybacks within their lifetime. Often clients are doing Roth conversions for other reasons, like maximizing assets to heirs, rather than just seeing a net present value. So Again, this is a successful plan for Jane. We think that we can help Jane achieve a lot more value in her plan by being more thoughtful about how to use her home equity. And we saw earlier when Brady was talking about how reverse mortgages help you turn what is an illiquid asset, your home equity, into something that can be used during your lifetime or over the course of your plan. And what we're going to show is how Jane can capitalize on that opportunity and deliver a ton of value. So if we just look at how her assets are allocated at the beginning of the plan, she's got $1 million in taxable assets, $1 million in tax deferred, and then she's got a pretty sizable amount of home equity, $1.2 million, that today is not liquid. So in order for Jane to do the home remodel, she's going to spend $300,000 of her taxable savings to do that, which then leaves about $565,000 of that taxable savings that she'll need to support her lifestyle, to support that $125,000 starting after tax income that she needs. And we're adjusting that for each year for inflation, but she's also going to need to take some RMDs and some withdrawals out of her tax deferred accounts. So that 565 from taxable and the 720,000 from the tax deferred is what she'll need to support her lifestyle. What's left at the end is what's going to go to her heirs as a legacy. And this is also another way to think about it is these are the discretionary assets that if she wants to spend more money or do something in charitable causes or leave money to her heirs, she can do that.
And Raygar, I just want to make sure that just to clarify here, that we're looking at these numbers based on where she is at the beginning of the plan. So we're saying if she was setting up her financial plan and allocating her portfolio, we would say that right now, today, she's carving off that $300,000 for the home remodel. And then the 565 plus the 720 is what she would need to invest in her portfolio to support the income needs. And then she'd have the 135 and the 280 that we have in the legacy to heirs that she can really do whatever she wants with. That's those discretionary assets that you had mentioned. And so right now, that's the value of those. But we would expect or hope that by the time that those assets go to heirs, that they will have grown.
The interesting thing, I think, of looking at it this way is you can really see the home equity is such a gigantic asset that can't be accessed at all to fund her lifestyle, to fund her goals in her distribution years, in her retirement years. And so, as Brady mentioned, the product like a reverse mortgage can help make that liquid so that she doesn't have to fund all of her goals or fund everything only from those assets, excluding the home equity. So what we can see with Jane is that instead of funding the home remodel from taxable assets, she can actually fund it from her home equity. And so we're really moving this down from the taxable bucket down to home equity as an expense. What that means is she has still the same amount to support her lifestyle because her lifestyle needs hasn't changed. However, you'll see that now she has a lot more assets in that discretionary bucket, in the legacy to heirs, in the current assets perspective. It's a lot more balanced now. You can see there's 435,000 of taxable assets that really she has discretion on what she wants to do with. And yes, there's less home equity left for the legacy to heirs. However, this gives her more flexibility to do things like some more Roth conversions.
So Raygar, I love this because essentially, instead of taking a liquid asset from her non-qualified funds and spending that liquid asset on the illiquid asset, which is the house, she's using that illiquid asset to pay for itself. And then that $300,000 can stay in her portfolio and allow her to pass it to heirs or do something else with it that she wants to do. Now, I think we might have some people watching this and thinking, well, that's great, and love the idea of using the home equity to help pay for the remodel, but why use a reverse mortgage, or what does that reverse mortgage let us do in contrast with refinancing the current mortgage or using a home equity line of credit or some other vehicle?
It's a great point. If we look at this bottom of how you're accessing home equity, you're right. There's a lot of different ways that you could access this home equity. And one of the unique things with this reverse mortgage is how the interest accrues and also how payments are optional. So in this sense, how, Jane is now going to try and optimize her tax benefits of this reverse mortgage. Here's where we see some unique things that the HECM product offers for clients. which is no payments and the ability to have some discretion on when to pay down accrued interest. Most folks think about mortgages as having a component of principal that you pay each month along with interest that you pay each month. And then at the end of the year, sum up how much interest you paid, and that can turn into a 1098 mortgage interest tax deduction. But because payments are optional with the reverse mortgage, you can let those accrue and you don't have to pay that accrued interest off. However, you can also choose to do it in one lumpy way. And so that's what Jane's going to do, is she's going to actually pay down that accrued interest in year 10. So she's got this reverse mortgage when she's 62, which is the earliest age you can qualify for it. She's going to take out $300,000, use those funds to improve her home so she can age in place. And then after 10 years, she's going to pay down $350,000 of just the accrued interest. Again, she can pick which she wants to pay down. She's just going to pay down the accrued interest, which is going to create an amazing tax benefit for her in year 10. That $350,000 that she can now lump or match up and align against $350,000 of income to basically wipe that away from a taxability perspective. Even though she took the $350,000 out, she can actually turn around and just withdraw $350,000 more. What that's doing is that's increasing the principal balance that she's loaned against. However, you can be strategic about how you use the taxable interest that's accrued. And you'll see why she wants to do this, because on the next page, what we're going to talk about is now taking Jane's situation where, again, she was already doing a Roth conversion, but enabling her to do $350,000 more of a Roth conversion in year 10, because she can match that income that she's going to realize against the 1098 mortgage interest deduction she's going to receive. So what this looks like is it really just looks like she's increasing the balance in her HECM, in her reverse mortgage. However, she's getting the value of that 1098 deduction. So there's one more interesting aspect that Jane can accomplish here, which is normally you'd think of, okay, I have to have $350,000 of cash on hand in order to pay down this mortgage interest.
Definitely.
Well, what we're going to share here is she actually doesn't have to have that on hand if she's doing a Roth conversion and doing a rollover. And here's why. Is in year 10, we'd expect her to have around 1.3 million in tax deferred assets. Again, that's grown after about 10 years. And she could do a distribution for 50,000. Now, she would do this because she's going to roll it over. She's going to roll that over into a Roth IRA. And there's a couple of choices that clients have about how they move that cash. And one of the choices is that Jane actually receives the funds herself and just ensures that within 60 days, those funds are deposited into another IRA, or in this case, into a Roth IRA. Because she's just distributing from her tax-deferred IRA, this becomes taxable. What she could actually do is she could use that $350,000 to pay down the accrued interest, and then turn right around and withdraw it, again, within that 60-day limit from the reverse mortgage HECM product to achieve that graph that's shown above. And she has now realized a very large 1098 mortgage interest deduction, and also done that by completely funding the cash flow herself without having to realize any other taxable event. She didn't have to sell any assets and realize any other taxable events here. Let's look at now, if we layer in this $350,000 additional Roth conversion, how much more value this adds for Jane and her plan. So just to restate some of these details, and again, this is how we would share it with an advisor so that they could share it with a client. First, she's going to fund that home remodel using a reverse mortgage rather than using her taxable assets. That's one difference.
She's using the reverse mortgage to fund that, and all of the income she's taking from that reverse mortgage is tax-free.
Yes.
So the home is paying for its own improvements, and this is also not a taxable event for her, whereas in the original scenario, she would have had capital gains.
It's a great point, Jon-Michael, and that contributes to this additional $2 million of value that she is going to realize in her plan by implementing these techniques. We still have that original conversion of the $375,000 over 3 years. Again, those were in those years that were kind of the gap years after she retired, but before she took Social Security. So we still want to take advantage of the tax bracket capacity that she has in those years. However, she can now do an additional $350,000 10, which for her would be in 2036. And as I was mentioning on the previous page, she's going to use those rollover funds to basically manage that cash flow with the reverse mortgage, where she's going to pay down the interest and then just turn right around and withdraw a larger principal balance from that reverse mortgage. And it's just important that she does that within 60 days, just according to the current IRS rules that allows her to do that. So we take a step back and just look at, okay, where do we start with this plan, and where are we ending with it? We like to think about Roth conversions not necessarily just for Jane's her time horizon, not just her plan in her life, but actually thinking about the value that she's delivering to her heirs and how to maximize assets to her heirs. And for Jane, when she's 94, so after 32 years, the starting plan still had a decent amount of assets going to her heirs, almost $4 million. Now, if we did the Roth conversion, as you could see, the savings improvement were pretty modest. It's not that significant of assets that, are changing. However, the mix of assets are significant. She now has the majority of these assets in this middle column in a Roth account, in the best tax advantaged account you can get. And then with the reverse mortgage, she can not only turbocharge how much is in the Roth accounts, but even still have taxable savings at the end. And this is where we get this really big $2 million of value added through the Roth conversions, as long as she's using this reverse mortgage. This reverse mortgage isn't for everybody, but here's a really, really unique situation that tax planning can deliver a ton of value with. And as we just walked through, we want to share just in a visual way how to explain these and how to think about these concepts. However, every time we show any numbers in PlanScout presentations, they're always backed up by a detailed cash flow based plan. And so what we wanted to do, I wanted to let Jon-Michael actually share with you in our planning software how we've modeled this, and also how you might want to model this if you would like to build those plans yourself in the planning software.
So here's how we would model the plan in SIPs that kind of lies underneath or informs everything that we've seen in the presentation so far. And we'll just kind of talk through and kind of explain what we're looking at here and kind of show our work, almost in terms of what we're seeing in the plan and how that relates to what we just talked about. So at the beginning here, we can see the $2 million that Jane has in her portfolio. Now we've excluded the home value here just because, it's there. It is part of her overall net worth. But in the SIPs plan, we're really focusing on, because it's an income-based plan, we're focused on the investable assets that are supporting the client's income, as well as their other sources of income and expenses, such as wages and Social Security and taxes, etc. So we've got her non-qualified and her tax-deferred assets, and we can see she's going to be working for another 4 years before she has a little bit of a break and then starts Social Security at age 70. And then we've added a couple of columns here to show the income and the expenses from the HECM, from the reverse mortgage. In year 2, we can see that she's going to spend $300,000 from the home remodel, and she's going to fund that with $300,000 from the reverse mortgage. And we can look at the taxes here, and this goes back to the point we made earlier where this is a tax neutral event for her. So all of her income taxes here, those are really driven by her wages and then any kind of normal capital gains or dividends in her non-qualified portfolio. But she's not seeing a big tax spike here from realizing capital gains in her portfolio to fund a $300,000 remodel out of pocket. Then once she retires, she's got a little bit of a gap here between when her wages end and Social Security begins. And so we did some analysis to say, could we do a Roth conversion here? And the optimal amount for her to convert based on maximizing her savings at the end and minimizing her overall taxes is to do this $125,000 per year. So she's going to take the $125,000 from the tax deferred. We're going to see that go into the Roth IRA each year. And then in terms of paying the taxes for this Roth conversion is going to be just paid out, with the non-qualified funds that she's using to support her lifestyle during these years. And we can see this keeps her taxes at a pretty consistent rate. To what she was paying when she was retiring, which is usually something that we like to see. We want to see during the Roth conversion, those taxes stay relatively close to what the client's used to paying or a little bit less, but we want to avoid a big spike. Then we're going to end that Roth conversion. We can see Social Security begin. And then in year 12 here, so 10 years after we've paid for the home remodel. We've allowed that interest in the reverse mortgage to grow. And we're going to do a few things here in terms of money movements. We're going to withdraw $350,000 from the tax deferred. We're going to use that to pay down the interest on the reverse mortgage. Then we're going to take that 350 right back out, and that's going to go into the Roth IRA. And then we can see again how this is still going to be a relatively tax neutral event for her because she's getting the $1,000 mortgage interest deduction. We're not seeing that big taxable event here. She's stepping nicely up into her in her tax curve. And then after this, we do see taxes increase. This is because she's going to start taking RMDs when she turns 75. So that's unavoidable. You know, she's got to take those RMDs because she does still have tax deferred assets. But the nice thing about doing this Roth conversion now is she is at least using all of her tax to fund her lifestyle income. She's not in a situation where she might be taking more RMDs than she needs to. So yeah, she can pay a little more taxes once they start, but it's all going to be in service of supporting that lifestyle.
So Jon-Michael, you've done a great job of modeling the cash flow for the HECM here and the home remodel. And obviously connecting that with the Roth conversion in the plan. When Brady was describing some of the limitations with reverse mortgages, he talked about how not all of the balance is available. Not all of the 1.2 million could be accessed through this product. Could you share a little bit about how you workshop that in the planning software to ensure that you stayed within the proper limits?
Definitely. So one thing just to, disclose, for this purpose here is the amount of the principal limit that the client can get, or the principal limit in the reverse mortgage that they can qualify for, is going to depend on the value of their home, but also their age when they take out the reverse mortgage. And those percentages do change over time, and it can vary based on, what particular reverse mortgage product you end up using. So you'll want to check, with your financial professional, if this is something that you're interested in. But we used a home value that was about $1.2 million, which is the maximum home value that will count towards the principal limit. And then for a client of this age, at the time that we made this demo, it worked out to about $362,000 worth of available principal here. And the interest rates will vary over time. The principal limit and the balance will grow at the same interest rate, and it was about 7%. But those can fluctuate as well as interest rates change. So the way that we can show the reverse mortgage in SIPs here, so that way we can monitor the principal limit that as it grows, as well as the balance that we're carrying, and in order to make sure that the balance is never exceeding that principal limit, is we can do this as two separate accounts. So the principal limit we've set up as one account here with the 7% interest rate, and the initial balance of that account is the starting principal that the client qualifies for the loan. We can see that this is just going to grow over the time horizon of the plan. We can set up a second account here for the balance that we're carrying in the loan. So again, the same interest rate. There's a little bit of a balance starting here because this represents like the origination fees and the mortgage insurance premiums and kind of those other miscellaneous charges that you're going to pay to get the reverse mortgage. And most clients will roll that right into the balance. And then in year two, we can see the $300,000 that we have withdrawn. In 10 years, though, because we're withdrawing $350,000 and then depositing $350,000 to pay the interest and then taking $350 back out, that nets out to zero. So we don't need to show any additional activity there. And if you use a group, we can group these together and collapse the group, and you can see really conveniently how much additional room the client has in their loan to take out additional income. So even after paying back the mortgage interest and then taking out the additional principal, she still has about $150,000 of credit left on the reverse mortgage that she could use for whatever she wants. And then we have the home value here. So Raygar, you made the good point earlier that as we use the reverse mortgage, as we, draw income from it and carry a balance, that does have to get paid back when the client vacates the home. So if you put the house value here as just another account, you can compare the balance of the loan to be paid back against the value of the house to see how much equity might be left for her or for heirs when she vacates the home.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jon-Michael, for going through that level of detail in the planning software. It's such a powerful tool where we can model any type of asset, any type of income and expense, and any taxability of those. And as we just went through, tax planning adds a ton of value for clients. And with some of these unique situations, you could see how much unique value can be added with the reverse mortgage, especially in the scenario we were just describing. There's many more where use cases where clients may just want to have access to that home equity and it could help them fund their lifestyle. But we love and we get excited about all the tax planning unique opportunities. So I hope that you all can replicate that. And if you have questions about reverse mortgages or about how the products work, you can see Brady's contact info. He can help you in any way. And if you want to create any plans with PlanScout or have questions about how to do it in our planning software, reach out to our team. Thank you so much.
Thank you.